How many languages do you speak?
3 of them. So Spanish, Portuguese, and English. And my goal when I was a kid is I wanted to learn 10 of them. I'm
you
fascinated
lazy
by
guy.
I know.
You stopped at 3.
Yeah, and I even screwed it up worse than that because my Spanish is about as bad as it gets now. Like I talk to people and they're like, "What's wrong with you, man? You don't even what is this? This isn't Spanish. What is this?"
That's the frustrating part about languages that you don't use very often. I learned Japanese about 20 years ago, and just not using it regularly like I used to, it's so difficult to try to remember any of those words anymore. Sometimes I come back and it's amazing, but other times it's just like, I should know this word. It's a simple word, and it just is gone.
Language is use it or lose it.
Yeah,
it really is.
You know, when I was living in Brazil as a kid, when I came back, because 2 years or a year and a half, I spoke Portuguese, and I didn't know a lick of Portuguese when I got there. So my mind, over about 6 months, transformed and was able to learn this language. And when I got back to America, I struggled for a while. I was like, I don't know how to say that, and it was like things didn't make sense, and it was crazy. Like I had a hard time speaking English after that, and it was language.
So you were full immersion.
Full immersion. Completely.
I mean, that's the only way you start getting hesitant on your native language is you go full immersion in something else.
Yeah, I realized I was really, speaking, Portuguese and full immersion when I woke up screaming Portuguese words in the middle of the night.
So I'll tell you, the only Portuguese that I ever remember, besides "eu não falo português," is "bombeiro, bombeiro, não tem mangueira."
Yeah.
which means, so you, for the other guys, it means fireman, have you no hose? I remember it from a TV commercial when I was a little kid.
That's great. I love it. Well, I'm glad to be here with you guys today. A lot of exciting things, and I think your entire life is what brings you to these moments. And that, we had a little bit of talk about my childhood, and that's really what got me here. And it's without that, I would never be here today. Not even a chance.
Yeah. Amazing. So just to run through a little bit, we're just chatting right now and all that. In a minute, Katie will pull us all down. We'll have me announce the title of the show and stuff like that. We'll run a couple of commercial breaks, and then the official part of the show will start.
Sounds good.
Great.
This is Autoline After Hours with John McElroy and Gary Vasilash, episode 513 for June 11th of 2020. Nikolas Crusade for fuel cell semis. Watch Autoline After Hours live at Autoline.tv every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 12 p.m. Pacific. You can subscribe to this podcast for free by searching for Autoline in iTunes, Stitcher, or YouTube.
Autoline After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires. Your journey, our passion.
Gary, hello out there in virtual land.
How are you, John?
Doing pretty good. Pretty good.
Good. Glad to hear that.
Looking forward to today's show, I got to tell you.
Yeah, we got an exciting show today, and so there happens to be something that happened in history. What a surprise that is. 125 years ago, which sort of got us to where we are right now. Because in 1895, Charles Dulier got the U.S. patent for a gasoline-driven automobile. So one might make the argument that that's sort of where things happened. And we may be at a point now where this will be a change from what Dulier was all about.
That's interesting that I didn't know that Dulier had gotten a patent, because there was another guy named Selden who got a patent and tried to force every automaker in the United States around that time, certainly around 1900, that they had to buy his patent or pay him for every car they made. Henry Ford was the one who stood up to him and said, "This is a bunch of garbage. It doesn't apply. Your patent wouldn't even work." And Henry ultimately ended up winning the lawsuit that said you didn't have to do it. But literally every other automaker in the U.S. at that time paid Selden for his patent. So I'm surprised to hear that Dulier actually had one.
Mm-hmm. So just think, a patent troll way back then.
I hadn't thought of it that way, but you're right. Hey, we got to bring in Sebastian Blanco. Let everybody else know he's joining us today. Hello, Sebastian.
Hello, John and Gary. How are you guys doing today?
Great. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Good to be here. Virtual
Yeah.
as always. And I recently wrote an article for Car and Driver about how to use your car as an office. And I didn't know quite how applicable that was going to be to my life just a few days later. So,
So explain why you're in your car right now and not at home.
right. Well, I live in rural Michigan. The internet is better than it used to be, but we rely on satellite internet or tethering our phones, and that just isn't going to cut it for these sort of live video streams. So I've driven into town. I'm by my public library, sitting in my car, and I hope it doesn't get too warm as the hour continues.
Well, I got to tell you, your video and your audio are awesome.
Well, that's because I'm here at the library instead of at home in the forest.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it's because of the article that you wrote.
Yeah, he's a
Right.
professional about this now.
Yeah. No, I had to think about, like, if you, with everybody working from home nowadays, sometimes the office also is a playroom, also is all kinds of things for the rest of your family. So one of the ideas for the article was, well, maybe you could go to the office that's parked in your driveway and just work from there for a little bit and get some peace and quiet. But yeah, today it's because it's mobile, and it brought me and my laptop here to the library.
Great.
Cool. Glad it's working so well.
Me too.
Okay, enough of this chit chat. We got to bring in our special guest for the show, Trevor Milton. Come on in. Trevor, hello out there.
Hey guys, how are you doing?
Yeah, and just in case nobody knows, he's the chairman and founder of Nikola. Is it Nikola or Nikola? How do you say it?
Nikola. Yep. You
Nikola.
accent the first letter. He was a Croatian Serbian engineer, Nikola Tesla. And that's who the company was actually named after, is Nikola Tesla. And that's how you pronounce it.
Okay, we got a zillion things we want to ask you about the company and hydrogen and fuel cells and all kinds of stuff. But first, I want to kick off the show this way. I have never had a guest come on the show with me and Gary that has generated so much controversy before the show even started. I mean, people are out for your head. I mean, you got a lot of followers, right? But there's a lot of other people. That's just a fraud. It's a scam. John and Gary, you better not just sit back and let this guy talk. You better make sure that you dig out the truth because he's not telling it. What is it about you and Nikola that has got, especially the Tesla fanboys, off their rockers?
Hey, look, man, when you, when you change everything, when you completely disrupt something that's been established for a while, it sends people into a frenzy. So we've disrupted two things. We've disrupted the automotive world, the trucking world. Like, they never thought it was going to happen. They never thought we were going to actually do it. And then we disrupted a lot of the Tesla model. I mean, I like Elon. The dude doesn't like me. That's okay. Like, he just called me a fool on Twitter today. I have no problem with that. Like, I just laugh at these things because the more people that are after you, it's like, that's how the oil companies used to act. Elon would, these people would never comment on something like that if they really didn't care. But if they're scared, they start to comment, and you can actually see them when they get scared, and these personalities start to come out. So we got the oil companies, we got the automotive group, and we got the Tesla group all kind of gunning for us. And that's a pretty good target on my back. So I kind of laugh. Yeah, there's a lot of people out there for us.
Trevor, so for people who are not familiar with you, I mean, I know that would be a surprise, but so explain what disruptions you're doing. What tangible disruptions are you making?
All right, so I'll answer that. The last thing I was going to tell you though is, feel free to come at me with anything you want. So your viewers never think that you just let me off the hook, because I'm an open book, and it's really fun. So let me tell the viewers what we do. Nikola is very special because we are the pioneers in electric semi trucks. Everything electrified in the semi truck world, Nikola was truly like the pioneer on it. So the hydrogen electric semi truck and the battery electric semi truck, we have both versions. And we're the only company that does both. And because we offer both, we can be honest about what the advantages are of both. Everyone else is either over here on hydrogen or over here on electrification, and they all followed us into the market. Nikola was first. So what we do is we provide, there's two very basic things to understand about electrification on semi-trucks. Everything up to 300 miles, a battery works really good. And that's because of weight, weight and battery size. Everything over 300 miles, battery, you're starting to lose major revenue. And that's where hydrogen comes in. So one size does not fit all. One size you don't have one thing that fixes every problem. So the hydrogen truck weighs nearly 10,000 pounds less than a battery truck. And in the trucking world, that's pretty much game over. I mean, you're bankrupt if you're a few hundred pounds or a few thousand pounds over compared to your competitors. So that's why, battery electric is cheaper to drive inside of a city. Hydrogen is cheaper to drive on the freeway. And that's why we pioneered both of them. And that's what Nikola does.
Long pause as I wait.
no, okay.
Sebastian, come on, jump in.
All right. Can you talk a little bit about the history, since we're sort of at the beginning here of this conversation, the evolution of Nikola as the original idea from natural gas and then into hydrogen? Like you didn't come at this, from what we can tell looking at the history, with one goal in mind. It looks like you were able to adjust. And is that sort of mindset still working for you today as you look forward?
Yeah, so when we first started, batteries and hydrogen were not ready yet. The technology was way out there. Hydrogen was over $20 a kilogram. Batteries were $1,000 a kilowatt hour. So, I mean, it was like, it made no sense to we couldn't get something. They weighed too much. You couldn't get them to be competitive. So we started out as my goal was to get rid of diesel and go to a much cleaner method, ultimately zero emission. But at the time, there was no options available to be successful. So we started out, we built these, we built this turbine, this bladeless turbine. Is really cool. It's a natural gas turbine. It had much higher efficiency than a diesel. And the idea was to have a hybrid with batteries, turbine, semi-truck. Like a few months prior to our unveiling in December 2016, I went to my board and I said, guys, we're dumping the turbine altogether. And they had like a total panic attack. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, we're going to a fuel cell. And they're like, no, we're not. No, we're not going to a fuel cell. No, we're not. You've got millions of dollars into this thing. What in the hell are you thinking pulling out of this thing and going to a fuel cell? And I said, well, my goal's always been zero emission. And I believe the whole world's going zero emission. And if you have any emissions at all, you're going to be fighting the political winds. And also, it's our goal to get rid of emissions. So let's do it right the first time. And they're like, well, the fuel cell's not ready, batteries aren't ready. And I said, I know, but we're going to pioneer them. So I found enough people around the world to work with me. And at the time, no one believed in fuel cell. Literally, like Daimler had written it off, everybody had written it off. Toyota was doing cars, but like barely. But it was like no one believed in fuel cells. So luckily, I got the pick of the litter of the best people in the world to come work and help me. And I got them to sign exclusivity of the IP over to us to help us develop it. So I ended up with like all the fuel cell technology. I ended up with like, even on our truck, like all the suspension, the e-axle technology stuff today where you would have to spend billions getting there. I got these guys to give it to me for free just to prove it could work. And then I turned around and I used that to structure deals. We got Robert Bosch to put $130 million into our company. And how did I do that? I proved the fuel cell could work. And I turned around and I said, hey, I've got this thing. I will allow you guys to manufacture it for the whole world if you build it for us and save me $1 billion. And they said, done, let's do it. Diesel's dying, diesel's going away slowly. So let's make sure we have another business model in here. And that's what I did for the whole truck. I kind of got the best pieces all locked up in IP. And then I started bartering, working with people to help me get this truck to where it is now today.
Hey,
Trevor,
I got to tell you, I'm glad
ahead.
that you mentioned Bosch, because for those who think, hey, this is just smoke and mirrors, Nikola doesn't really have anything going there. You got Bosch on board. You've got CNH, which is the parent company of Iveco. You got them on board. You got Steve Gursky in there too. What I'm getting at it, I know Gursky personally. I know Mike Mansuetti from Bosch very well. I don't know the people from CNH, but these are not people that are going to get snookered by stuff. These are people with a tremendous amount of experience. And the fact that you got them locked up, quite honestly, is the reason why I wanted to have you come on as a guest, because that told me you're not just a bunch of BS there trying to scam people.
Look, there's no one in the world that knows more about automotive than Bosch. Nobody. They're hands down the most knowledgeable group on the planet, I should say, about automotive. They know everything about everything, and they got the greatest PhDs in the world. They have 400,000 employees, and they can pick you apart so easily with any bull crap, bullshit, whatever. Sorry, I know we had a discussion about swearing on the show, guys. Sorry. So they can pick you apart in 2 seconds because they'll sit you in a room with 7 PhDs that are specialized in a PCB board, and you can't bullshit them. So the nice thing about Bosch is when they came in, they did a full exam of our company, and it took us a long time to get to where we are today, but they saw a lot of potential and they knew we were legitimate. Another group was Hanwha. Hanwha is the third largest Korean company in the world. And they're 50, 60 billion or something, maybe more in revenue. Like, we have the best investors. And the reason why people hate us or I shouldn't say hate, because we have, our following is huge. I mean, our you can see it obviously based upon the reaction on our IPO. We'll get to that later. But there is a certain amount of people that just absolutely just don't like us, and they don't like what they don't understand. When they cannot figure out why you can do what you can do and they can't, they hate you for it. And right now, what we're able to do is we're able to produce a hydrogen truck that could possibly be cheaper than even a battery electric truck now to operate per mile. And they're freaking out. That's why you saw Elon yesterday put out a thing that says, he's a fuel cell. Well, you can call it a fool all you want, but you didn't use it. You didn't use batteries to send your guys up to the space station. So don't, one size doesn't fit all and fix all problems in this life.
So we've had the people from Toyota's Project Portal on the show, and again, a fuel cell, and it's rolling around the port of Los Angeles. What's the difference between what they're doing and what you guys are doing?
So they just retrofitted a truck. That's what they did. This is a complete truck built from the ground up. It's just like what Tesla did in the cars. I mean, these guys, Tesla did some amazing stuff for the automotive world, and I'm always giving them props for what they did great. They took a car and they said, look, you can't make a regular car an electric car. You got to rebuild the whole thing. And we did the same thing with the truck. And even to this day now, the OEMs are still trying to build the exact same damn trucks, pickup, semi trucks with hydrogen. It's like, it'll never work. You're 4 feet longer. You're 5,000 pounds too much weight. You'll never compete. So the idea is that you have to be able to build something ground up. Our truck has got pretty much twice the horsepower. It'll go 3 times the distance, and it's way more efficient. And that's the only way to do it is if you build it from the ground up. And Toyota's the best of the best, but they don't build semi trucks.
Actually, they do. Hino truck.
Yeah, but that's the class, what, 7, 6, 7?
Well, no, you're right. It's not a class 8. You're right.
Trevor, I believe it's Hyundai that showed off. I forget the name of their hydrogen concept truck. So there are some ideas that are different than just putting a fuel cell and a stack into a traditional, international, tractor or something like that. But why do you think that the truck manufacturers are more interested in sort of refurbishing what they already know how to do versus what you're looking at and doing something from the ground up?
Well, in Europe, you don't have much of a choice, and Hyundai's kicking ass. I mean, these guys are as smart as they come. Hyundai is smart. I honestly think they're probably some of the top leaders in the world. These guys know their stuff. And what Hyundai figured out is that, in Europe, you can't change the size of the truck anyways, the aerodynamics. Everyone's just everyone has to deal with the flat nose. So everyone's treated equally. There's nothing you can really do. So they just retrofitted an existing chassis that had billions of dollars pumped into it for validation and testing. And it makes sense in Europe because you can kind of use the space that you have. But in America, these trucks are humongous. And you saw Nikola come out in 2016 with his truck that was aerodynamic. It looked like a bullet train. And we patented it. We had a ton of patents on that, on how you get in and out of the cab to allow the driver to be up front, next to the window. And ultimately then, it was only 4 months later or whatever, you saw Tesla come out with one that's almost identical, very similar to our design. And it's because if you don't have the aerodynamics and you use the existing trucking platforms right now, you will go bankrupt because say a brand new Peterbilt or a brand new Volvo is going to be 30% more drag than our truck is, up to somewhere around that number. And so that's why it's so important to be able to redesign everything for electrification here in America. And in Europe, you have no choice. You're stuck with a flat nose, and that's all you got.
Right, but so why do the companies that are going to be selling trucks here in the U.S., why are they not as interested in you in getting that 30% aerodynamic boost or some other, re-evaluation of the status quo?
Well, I think there's 2 reasons. One, it's $1 billion. So a lot of these guys just don't have $1 billion to throw around for a whole new program that they don't know if it's going to work or not, right? This was our only program, so we could take the risk. Our investors were okay. But they have, 100 different truck programs, and they don't have the ability. They got money allocated in every program, and they just don't have the ability to pull $1 billion out. The second one is we own the patents on it all. So it's very difficult to, we have this is one of those things that makes me a little sad, but we have a lawsuit against Tesla, but it's because they're using our patents, and you cannot do what we do without our patents. And they just blatantly just don't care. They're like, screw you, sue us. What do we care? So it's one of those things where I think that's why is the other guys are like, we're not getting into a lawsuit. It's just not. I need a head start. We developed intellectual property. It was our investors paid for it. We took a risk. We got it done. We got it approved. And it gives us a few-year head start. Now, these other guys can be mad about that, but they also enforce their patents as well. Everyone does. And it's my obligation to enforce ours. And it gives us a head start. And hopefully we can create this company to become one of the most valuable automotive groups in the world in a few years. And that's why patents are so important. It allows the little guys like us to fight against the big guys.
Trevor, why did you decide to go for commercial vehicles rather than crossovers or SUVs or sedans?
Because I love to make money.
So
Explain.
You don't make any money selling cars. It's very few people make money selling cars. It's all about money. It's all about profit. Like, look, I preach this everywhere. It drives me nuts. Sorry. You cannot be environmentally sustainable if you're not financially sustainable. This drives me insane about all the other guys out there. They don't care how much money they lose. What a terrible, terrible philosophy you're teaching the world. Because when that bubble bursts one day, when there's no more government money, no more city money, no more state money, the whole thing's going to come crashing down, wipe out trillions of dollars of wealth, and they're going to criticize everyone else doing clean energy for the rest of their life. So you have to be financially sustainable. This is why you saw Tesla come into the trucking world. They're losing money. They're not making any money. They made profit a couple quarters. That's okay. They're great guys. I drove a Tesla for 5 years. I'm not bashing them. I'm giving people examples of why I'm in trucking is because there's money in trucking. There's huge profits. We make 5 times the revenue on every semi truck we sell compared to Daimler, compared to PACCAR. That's why our company's valued so much. And this is why people yesterday, the whole entire media was bashing on us because they couldn't understand why the valuation was where it was with Nikola. Well, it's because they don't understand it. They don't understand what we're doing in the world. They don't understand our business model, and all they do is hate you because you don't have a product out. Well, that truck you're showing right now, the Nikola Tray, it's the first ever zero emission semi truck coming to market in production, and it comes out next year. And that's pretty amazing. We beat everyone to market.
Hey, Trevor, I know we're jumping all over the place, but we got questions coming in from the audience. Sure. Chelsea Sexton, I don't know if you know her, but she knows her stuff. She says, hydrogen's been a charity case for 25 years. How about some real talk about what it might be suited for, where it definitely is not, and what will it take?
Yeah, good question. I'll give you the answer. Here it is. Every pound on a trucking on a truck, let's just set the emotions aside. Let's talk just mathematics. If you're running a trucking company and your truck weighs 5,000 pounds more than the other one, you lose $2,500 on every load. So every pound's worth 50 cents when you're running a full load, okay? It's not every load in America, but it's a lot of them. So when you run a full load like pork, every pound is worth another 50 cents in revenue. So if the hydrogen truck weighs 5,000 or 10,000 pounds less than a battery truck, it's going to make thousands of dollars per run more than the battery truck. Even if your energy is free, you might as well give the damn energy away and you'll still lose money. It's all about revenue. And that's where hydrogen does not work in every situation. I tell people all the time, up to 300 miles, battery kicks hydrogen's butt in almost every situation. And when it comes to cars, hydrogen, in my opinion, is a better solution on cars. But when you get into heavy duty like trucking or heavy duty marine, like big ships, trucking and ships, that it's everything. That's where hydrogen really makes sense. So it's a good question.
You just said you thought hydrogen was better for cars. You meant batteries better for cars.
I'm sorry, batteries are better. Yeah, batteries are better for cars. Hydrogen's better for semi trucks and commercial vehicles.
Yeah. So what about the issue of so a stat that I found was that in the world, there are 432 hydrogen refueling stations, of which only 330 are open to the public. And if we drill down to the United States or North America, that's 74 in total, and 48 of which are in California.
Yep.
So how is cross-continental trucking going to work out?
It's a good question, and I'll answer that with 2 things because we get a lot of questions from the Tesla, the Tesla fans about this. Hey, there's no network, and you're right. When Elon started, there was no network either. It never existed. So you have to understand. If you say that, then they should have never existed either. So the hydrogen network, there's a huge problem with this. It's very expensive. It's a major problem. I'm a very objective guy. I'll give you the good and bad about both, right? I don't just settle on one. I'm honest about both. When we started hydrogen, it was over $20 a kilogram. Today, our hydrogen costs are less than $4. We're down below pretty much 3 and working on getting down to 2. Like we have at $2, it's cheaper than electric vehicles to, essentially electric vehicles to drive. At $3, it's bankrupting. $3 and $4, it bankrupts diesel. So let me explain how this works. People say, oh yeah, well, hydrogen's so much more less efficient. Well, that is true. You have less efficient, you have more efficiency losses in the supply chain. But there's a lot of variables people don't talk about. First of all, when we produce hydrogen, we produce it on the freeways. Okay, going back to your point. We produce it on the freeways and we pre-sell a route. So let's just say LA to Phoenix. That route will be pre-sold. We'll put a station on it, and then we allow people to buy trucks that run that route every day. And there's thousands of trucks that run that same route every day and will never see another road for the rest of their life. They'll die on that route, those trucks. So then you just go and you just do that over and over and over again. It's just like the freeway was with cars. So you just keep doing that. And over a period of 7 years, we'll have complete coverage in the USA and Canada. And because we're doing hydrogen in such mass volume, and because we can tap into the federal grid line rather than in a city where you charge your car, our cost of electricity is between 3 and 4 cents a kilowatt hour for zero emission 100% electricity. The cost of electricity inside of the city, anywhere in California, when you pull it out, is going to be between 13 and 30 cents a kilowatt hour for dirty electricity. This is what drove me nuts. The tweet last night that when someone put up this chart that said, hydrogen's stupid. Look at how inefficient it is. And Elon said, yeah, it's a fool cells. The problem they're looking at is in that chart is it shows all clean energy, no efficiency losses before. What they don't talk about is over 50% of that energy, actually it's closer to like 70, is all produced through fossil, through fuels. It's produced through natural gas, oil, gasoline, generators. It's coming into the grid dirty, 70% of it, and you're paying 7 times more for it. We can do it on the federal grid, zero emission 100% of the time, and we can do it for 1/7 the cost. What's cool is anyone who is objective and is not emotional, and they truly believe in zero emission, they'll love you. All the people that hate you for it and bash you for hydrogen, all they care about is just being a fan cult. That's all it is. Because if you really cared about emissions, you would care about getting rid of that 70% of the emissions you're sucking out to put in your car. On the federal line with us, we can guarantee our energy is 100% clean energy all the time.
So how are you making the hydrogen?
We do it through electrolysis. So it's all done through water. And it's only a few cents per kilogram. So it doesn't, it uses a little bit of water, but less than diesel, by the way. So it's a few cents per kilogram, and you do it through electrolysis. So it takes energy and water, and that's it. And we just ordered $30 million worth of equipment 3 days ago for our electrolyzer. So all it takes is just electricity, clean energy from hydro, wind, or solar. And we can produce it all 24 hours of the day, never paying peak rates, never buying dirty energy, all zero emission. So if you really love zero emission,
you make it on site?
We do. We
make it on site at the station.
Yes. And that's why it's so, this is, people don't get Nikola. Once they dig into it, they're like, oh my gosh, this is why you saw Fidelity, PSAM, BlackRock, all these huge groups putting in Bosch, Hyundai, Case New Holland, Iveco. You can't bullshit these guys. They dug into all of our stuff when they realized that we have the largest hydrogen station in the Western world at our headquarters. So we've already proven it. It's not, they're like, oh yeah, hydrogen never works on a large scale. Bullshit, because we pioneered it. This is why we're leading everybody. We wrote the filling protocols for the whole world. Nikola's team's in charge of it, for hell's sakes. Like, we got the top team in the world that's in charge of heavy duty fueling, how you store it, how to do it safely, how to allow everyone to have the same protocol. And we figured it out. And now we're down $2-3 a kilogram, and it's pretty awesome.
So Trevor,
sorry, go ahead, Gary.
Well, I was going to say, to get back from the LA Phoenix run back and forth. Okay.
Yeah.
So is the intention that you'll have a fueling station in LA that the trucking companies will use? They'll drive to Phoenix. You'll have another fueling station there, and that's where they'll get their energy.
It depends on how far that route is. So if it's under 500 miles, you only need one. You put it in the middle, way out in the middle of nowhere, just on the freeway. Land is super cheap. The power lines are right there. You're good to go. For transporting the clean energy there. So, but if it's like between two cities, like San Francisco and LA, yeah, you'll have one on each side.
Okay.
Hey, we got a question here from Avak Sakar. You were talking about the stations. He wants to know, how many hydrogen stations do you need across the U.S. eventually?
Well, to be honest with you, you only need about 20 to 30 of them to cover the whole U.S. But we have 700.
You're talking for long haul trucking routes.
Long haul. Yeah, long haul trucking. But that only functions for long haul, right? Those are the people that, and they would have to go out of their way. So people are going to be pissed about that. They're going to be like, oh, I got to go 300 miles out of the way to get hydrogen. Yeah, good luck, man. You're going to make everyone mad. And so what we do is we pre-sell a route. Nikola never builds on speculation. What we do is we build a route. We build it. We go to these customers like Anheuser-Busch. They signed $800 million worth of lease orders with us. 800 million, by the way. And by the way, those are real orders, not bullshit orders like everyone online claims. It's a real contract signed. Can they get out? Yes, if we don't deliver, just like any contract with anyone in the world. So it's real. These contracts for these trucks they run the same route every day. So we have 13 stations going up with Anheuser-Busch. They all run the same route every day. We put the station, we get this truck sold first, then we put the station in, and they come online at the same time. Once that station's in, you can allow other people to travel that same route and maximize that. You can just keep adding electrolyzers. And the best part is with electrolyzers, you don't need to go into the ground. You're not burying oil in the ground. You can just keep adding these electrolyzers and producing more and more hydrogen. So it's a very simple thing to just keep scaling up once you have the station in.
Trevor, are people buying the trucks or are they leasing the trucks from your company?
It doesn't really matter. It's all tax benefits. That's the only reason why we offer both. So the lease, either way, all the fuel is included. Whether they buy it or they lease it, it doesn't matter. Some people want leasing because it's better for their tax benefits. Some people want to buy it because they want the assets and they can write it off. So some companies will do both. It's the same cost. They can either pay for it or they can lease it, and it all comes out to about somewhere around about 95 cents a mile. And everything's included, by the way. So the thing Nikola does is we've solved the whole vertical integration. If you think about Amazon, before Amazon came, you had to go down to the store, Walmart deal with the distribution, or you had to order something online. Then you had to hire like UPS to ship it for you off of eBay, and it was a total mess, right? It was a mess. Well, what did Amazon do? They came in, they're like, you guys are all idiots. I'm going to combine all this into one. We'll handle everything for you, and with a click of a button, it's your house the next day. That's essentially, they handle everything: the logistics, the shipping, the returns, the reviews, everything, your credit card, all that. Nikola is the same way. Right now in trucking, if you own a truck, you have to go out and you have to broker fuel. You have to broker service and warranty, and you have to have a whole back office handling everything, including all of your freight costs. And so you normally, for one truck, you're going to have multiple people. It's a total mess. And so what we did is we said, look, this is a prime industry to completely disrupt. We're going to bring it all in house. We're going to vertically integrate it. So when you buy our truck, we handle your sales, service, warranty, and your hydrogen fuel, and you pay cost per mile, and that's all you do. And you never pay anything else, and that's it. And then now your cost to operate is fixed for 7 years. It's the first time it's ever been done in history. Nikola pioneering one more time. Everyone said we couldn't do it. We did it, and that's why we're public today.
Hey, look, we got so much more to get into, but we got to take a quick commercial break and give a shout out to our good friends at Bridgestone that helped make this show possible. All right, we're back talking with Trevor Milton about all kinds of things with Nikola. And we got a few more questions here. Jonathan Brown, a good viewer on the show, wants to know, how long do these hydrogen trucks last?
Sorry, this table's very unstable. Okay, there we go.
As long as it's only the table there, brother.
It's not an earthquake, I promise. So hydrogen trucks are pretty much the same life expectancy as you would see with a battery electric truck. They're going to last about 1 million miles, and then you got to refurbish them. So after 1 million miles, our battery electric trucks the battery will be bad, and you'll have to rebuild it. And you'll also have to redo the cab, because by 1 million miles, the drivers have trashed the cab. So the hydrogen's the same way. After 1 million miles, you got to swap out the fuel cell, what they call the MEA, and you've got to swap out a few other little things, and also the cab. So it's about this. It's actually a little cheaper because the tanks on hydrogen last 20 years. So you can go through 3 truck cycles with the same set of tanks. So you just have to replace just the fuel cell and the cab, and that's about a third of the cost of what you have to replace with a battery truck.
Not the electric motors?
No, they'll last, good gosh. I mean, honestly, electric motors will last probably 10, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. The axles will go out before you do that, and a lot of people are getting into like filtering the oil inside the axle to clean any impurities out of there so that the e-axle lasts longer. But you have a single gear reduction, so it's very stable. It's an even wear, and you're going to get a good million miles out of that if you do it right.
So if somebody is a professional trucker and they've been driving a traditional Class 8 truck all their lives and they get into your vehicle, what will the experience be like for them?
They'll never touch another truck in their life again after that, unless they have to. It's literally that big of a difference. So the reason why is you get rid of all the shifting, all the gears are gone, and
they're
some
fast.
drivers, they are fast. Yeah, I was going to get to that next. The drivers are the drivers. Some drivers love to shift, and I get it. I understand it. But when you get into this, you end up having more excitement around other things like recovering energy. So when you let off the pedal, it starts to recover all that energy. And your mind actually starts to become more like an engineer as you own an electric vehicle than it does just like thinking about shifting all the time. This thing's got unlimited torque from 0 miles an hour all the way to peak speed. When I say unlimited, that means unlimited within the range it can do, which is many times what you would get with a diesel. So our semi truck is over 1,000 horsepower, and we have to tone it down. It's over 1,000 horsepower, and it has pure 100% torque. It can do a 6% grade at 55 miles an hour fully loaded, 45 no problem. And with the diesel, you're going to be fully loaded up a 6% grade. You're going to be 15 miles an hour. That's how much more efficient and more powerful an electric motor is. This is why locomotive, the big trains, that's why they use electric motors. They don't use differentials.
Yeah, that's right.
Can I go back to the discussion about the stations, and can you give us a little more detail on? You said like you're going to start with 7 between like in California and Vegas, that area. But so if someone comes to you and leases a truck and says, you say then the station will go in when the truck is ready, and then later the other people will be able to use that station. How fast can you produce the hydrogen? How long does it take? Like you said, you can add electrolyzers and things, but I know one of the problems with passenger cars is sometimes the stations doesn't have enough hydrogen to supply because it takes a while to use the electrolysis or however they're generating it. So do the people who have leased the truck from you, do they have, like priority? Can they reserve some hydrogen if there's going to be other people using it who maybe like will take their hydrogen, they have to wait 6 hours for more to be generated? Like how does that process work?
Yeah, so I mean, when the hard part is everyone who's used to hydrogen has been doing it with cars, and they have to make these stations so cheap because there's no money in hydrogen with cars. They're all losing money, and so they don't have the ability to engineer it right. Our stations are huge; they'll hold like 5,000-10,000 kilograms of hydrogen just in buffer alone. You pull 50 trucks, shit, the station doesn't even know it. It just pumps it right in. Okay. Because we're doing this stuff the right way, right? We're handling. We can fill a whole entire semi truck up in 15 minutes with hydrogen. It's the same speed as a diesel truck, to fill and get going again. That's one advantage to hydrogen. And with batteries, when you're in the city, you don't need to turn them. You don't need to run them so often. So they'll use a battery truck throughout the city, and they'll plug it in overnight, and it'll charge over 10 hours overnight, and they use it again the next day. And that's hydrogen will never compete with that battery truck inside the city. It's a better situation. But on the freeway, where you're talking about long haul,
yeah,
a lot of miles, quick fill up. They don't want to be waiting for other people behind them, and the amount of truckers waiting, they have to be in and out. You've got to be able to top these things off and get someone out in 15 minutes. And that's one good thing about hydrogen. That has an unlimited cycle life, pretty much those tanks do. You can cycle them for 20 years and they never degrade. Whereas every time you charge a vehicle, the battery degrades. That does not exist with fuel cell, other than the MEA membrane on the fuel cell goes down a little bit in efficiency. And over time, you rebuild that. But it's the tanks will never, ever degrade, pretty much, except for when you have to recertify them or throw them away 20 years.
So as a magnitude of cost then compared to some of the commercial hydrogen fueling stations that exist in California for passenger vehicles, how much more expensive is one of these Nikola hydrogen stations?
When we started, they were $40 million a piece, and we've got them down to $15 million now. This is why Nikola's plan is so good. We whenever we sell a route, we sell them to hundreds of trucks. So we never build a station unless we have hundreds of trucks already on, ready to go. So like Anheuser-Busch, they'll say, okay, we need 100 trucks here, whatever. Every truck that we sell, we set aside about $30,000. That pays for the whole station. That's it. We make $1 million in revenue, pretty much close, over the life of that truck. And we only pay $30,000 out, then plus the energy for it. And it costs about $250,000 to do that. So total over the life of it, our revenue model is going to be about $1 million, and our margins are many, many times higher than our competitors because we took all the money away from the oil companies. And that's the brilliance of it.
Trevor, where are these trucks going to come from? Who's going to build them?
So initially, the trucks will be built by Iveco in Europe, and they're shipped here for the first 2 years. And then our factory here will be up and running by then. So we have a factory starting right now. We're going to break ground here really quick. That's going to be a fun thing for everyone. But that factory will take 2 years to build. So the first 2 years will be coming in from overseas, and the next 2 years we'll be building them here.
So the TRE vehicle, or I mean, maybe you say Tray. Okay, so that's the truck that's being built in Europe, and it's going to start as a battery electric vehicle, and then be switchable to a fuel cell vehicle.
Yeah, that'll come in both battery electric and hydrogen version fuel cell, so you can order it either way, and that will be a 300 to 400 mile truck. So once again, battery does really good up to 300 miles. That's why we built that thing. Allows people inside the city to get their stuff around and get it around cheap and get it around environmentally, with environmental acceptable, levels, which is 0 for this truck. So that's a really good truck up to 300 miles. For the US, for the long haul, it's called the Nikola 2. It looks more like a Hawk. If you pull up the Nikola 2 image, you can see it looks more like a Hawk, like this thing. Yeah, it's a big truck made for America and made for these long roads, and people sometimes sleep in them. And it's a big truck. So
that truck will be built in your factory here, or will they both be built here?
No, it'll be, because we are 2 years out before the hydrogen comes online, and by then our factory will be online. So all of our hydrogen vehicles will be built out of here in the US for US. In Europe, we'll build both the electric and the hydrogen trucks, the Nikola Tray in Europe. So,
so here the date would be 24 when you guys are
not
up
quite. Not quite. No, it's at the end of it's like the end of 2022, beginning of 2021. 2023. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Hey, we've been talking all about these semi trucks, commercial, yada yada yada. You showed an electric pickup. I need to get this straightened out because I've read 2 different versions of things that you just sort of showed it and you're really not going to concentrate on it. And then I just read you're taking orders at the end of this month for it.
Yeah. So this thing is badass. People have asked me, like, why hasn't anyone else ever done this? I'm like, well, because we got $1 billion in the development of the powertrain, and we use the same one off the semi truck pretty much for this thing, just slightly smaller. And this thing is called the Nikola Badger. It's the most amazing pickup truck I think anyone will ever see in their life. It does everything that people wanted to do. It's a real pickup truck. It's made for real job sites, real construction job, real families driving around. Exactly like you're used to in say like a Chevy Colorado, or I mean like a Chevy Silverado or a Ford Raptor or whatever. So it's that size. It's a full size, like F-150 size truck. Okay, that's the most important thing to know. It's also the #1 selling truck in the world market. That's why we went there, because it's profitable. I don't do things unless they're profitable, unless there's just to help people get going. But like our power sports. But the idea is that this is a full profitable division, and this Badger is awesome because it does 2 things. It's offered in a battery electric version only for those people that don't need to go over 300 miles. For all those people that are going to pull trailers and go over 300 miles, you can add a fuel cell to it that'll give you another 300 miles. So this truck will go 600 miles without stopping. And if you're traveling across country, you can just fill up with hydrogen only takes a 5-minute fill. And bam, you're topped off with hydrogen. You can go another 300 miles on hydrogen. So on long roads, like long road trips, you don't even touch the battery. You just keep filling up hydrogen, and you just drive on that and then you can drive thousands of miles, and you're only stopping 10 minutes at a time. So that's why this truck is so awesome. It does everything. It gives anyone who needs a truck just to drive around the city and they charge it all night. Sounds good. You got it. Anyone who needs pulling a trailer or to be able to drive this thing long distance, we got it.
So you're going to make that in the plant with your semis, and when will it be available?
I will tell you that in 1 second. Hold on. I got my wife just walked up asking a question. So just 1 second. There's one person that can stop interview. That's her.
Yeah. No problem.
The realities.
That's right.
has been interesting watching all of the the COVID-19 sort of streaming specials on TV or wherever, and you get to see people's life. You get to see their apartments, their
dogs and
attic.
cats.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Their kids.
That's right.
Been kind of an
I love
interesting case here.
when they're on national television and a little kid comes screaming into the
Right.
room. That's the best of all.
Sorry, guys. My wife walked in and she knows I'm on an interview, but she needed something, so I
No problem.
I have to stop for her. She's the
Yeah.
one
Got to listen to the boss there. So back to the Badger. You guys going to make that in your plant where you're making the semis? When will it be? Okay, fill in the blanks.
That's going to be done by another OEM. So we have developed the most badass truck in the world, and in order to get to market quickly and save billions of dollars, we're going to have another company do it, and it'll be announced soon. We got 3 OEMs in the running right now, and we believe we're very close to signing paperwork. These guys.
So let me ask you a question. CNH, Iveco used to be part of Fiat FCA, doing the PSA. Boy, wouldn't Ram love to have that truck in its lineup?
I'm sure pretty much every OEM does, to be honest with you. We've had discussions with every one of them. We've narrowed them down to 3. Obviously, the Agnelli family who owns kind of the whole CNH or a part of CNH, Fiat Chrysler, Ferrari, they own a bunch. They also own part of Iveco, which is our huge partner in Europe. So, a lot of people have asked, is that your common conclusion? And they're a great partner, no doubt. And we're letting everyone be in the running for it. It really comes down to what the best deal is on the table for our company. And after we have announced everything and people saw that we're legitimate and they've got to see it, our terms have gotten twice as good. So let's put it that way. So we have a lot of groups in right now, ready to do a deal. We're finalizing it right now, and soon we'll be in announcing that probably in the next 2 months or so, 2-3 months. And that'll be with what OEM it is. It'll be built at their factory, sold in service and warranty through their distribution, through their third-party logistics. So you're going to get the same quality of dealership service you get with that, with say another truck that you do with that. And that's, I think that's a smart way to go.
Would it be their brand or would it be a Nikola Badger?
It'll be a Nikola, brand. So it'll be a Nikola brand, sold on their at their dealerships. And the reason why is they would bring no brand value to offer another electric vehicle on their side. The people want a clean brand, completely clean, and that's what Nikola is. We don't touch anything with emissions. So, and that's why it would be sold as Nikola's, because that's where the value is.
So talk price in terms of a fuel cell pickup truck, because that's one of the feedbacks I'm getting from all the skeptics is like, man, fuel cells cost so much money.
Yeah, 60 to 90 grand for the truck. Depends on your options. They start at 60, goes up to 90. If someone fully loads it, you could see it go up over probably 100 if they had everything plus a fuel cell. But I mean, when Teslas first came out, they were selling them for 160,000. So when it's not that bad of a deal when you're talking about a truck that advanced for that price. It's actually pretty good with the new trucks being really expensive.
The 60 grand would be for a battery electric vehicle, not a fuel cell.
Exactly. That'd be the low end battery electric. We're going to offer the battery in 2 sizes. And then you get the, so if you start out at kind of 60, you go up to, you can go up to 80 or 90. And then the fuel cell kind of comes in their midway point as well.
Mm-hmm.
So about 75 is the cheapest you can get the fuel cell?
No, the fuel cell kind of be up on the upper end, but it's kind of weird because the batteries, you don't use the same battery for the fuel cells you do the battery only. They're 2 different batteries because of the way the engineering works. But if you want to order your truck as a compatible version, you're going to order it with 1 size of battery, and so it can be later future updated with the fuel cell. If you only want it battery electric and you'll never touch the fuel cell, then you're able to get another, I think it's 40 kilowatt hours on top of that. So it gives you like an additional amount of battery capacity to get around.
Okay, and one of the things that you said about the commercial truck market and the semi trucks, the designing that sort of hydrogen fuel cell powertrain was that you were able to be first, you're able to be disruptive, you're able to get those IP. I don't need to go over the entire list of people working on some sort of electrified pickup truck, but just for people who aren't aware, you got the Cybertruck, you got Rivian, you've got Lordstown Motors, you've got the upcoming GM vehicles, you got the F-150 electrified version. This is not an empty space that you're coming into, and you don't have, as far as I'm guessing, the same sort of we went early, we're going to be first type of advantage here. So what's the advantage to someone who wants a Nikola Badger versus any of those other electric trucks that I mentioned? I'm sure there's a bunch that I can't think of right now.
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple things. First of all, the Nikola truck does everything no one else does. So that's an important one, is it actually can pull a trailer without the batteries derating. You know, you can go up a hill with it with a full load. Your truck's not going to shut down. It can go twice the distance of a battery, and you can continually go cross country with it. So that's something that no one else offers. That's one good thing. The second thing is that it's going to be sold, service, and warranty through through some of the best brand in the world. And what that means is that we may not be first, like, oh yeah, first couple prototypes or whatever, but we're definitely going to be amongst the first in full production, and we're going to be spitting out some serious quantity of this because we're not trying to do the network ourselves, which I think was a total mistake by our competitors.
So what calendar year are you looking at?
It'll be the end of next year or beginning of 2022 for production in that truck. So we're not that far out.
Okay. We got to talk about your power sports too, because you've got a couple of side-by-sides and you even have a wave runner too.
Yep.
Man, it's so hard to launch a company like you're doing. I'm just afraid you're getting spread too thin. You've got a couple of different semis, you got the pickup truck, and now you got these power sports things going. Yep. Talk about the power sports and why you're doing it.
That's a good question. It's a discussion inside our boardroom all the time to make sure we're not distracted. And you know, the good thing about the power sports is that stuff all started years and years ago, and it's pretty much done now. And so we're not, you know, that doesn't take that much engineering resources. The idea behind the power sports is to really force our competitors to get into zero emission. I love going up in the national parks, and I hate hearing those damn things buzzing everywhere. Or I love going to the lake, and I hate seeing oil on the water. So for me, this one is not necessarily like everything else I do is around profitability. This one, because it's so cheap, it's not going to be that big of a deal. It costs some money, tens of millions, but it wasn't like $1 billion program. The idea is that we can force our competitors to get into zero emission, and it's going to force everyone to get away from those noisy, loud, fossil fueling burning, the UTVs or watercraft. And that was what that was really about. Now we're going to hand build those things. We'll build a few thousand a year, and they'll be profitable, but it's not a profit center. I mean, it might make, it might do a couple $100 million in revenue. It's nothing huge, but the idea is that one was a philosophy thing. That's the only thing outside of Nikola, like core business model, that is different, because it's a true philosophy thing where I wanted to change the national parks and I wanted to change the rivers and the lakes. That's what I did that for, because everyone else said, oh, it can't be done. I'm like, you know what? F you guys. I'm going to show you. I'll show you what's up.
That's great. Okay, so I got another question here then. VectorIQ, this investment firm that you did this reverse merger with. Talk about what that's involved with and why you guys did that business deal.
Yeah, so VectorIQ was really interesting because we wanted to go public. We knew that. And the reason why is WeWork really ruined it for everyone. They came out and they were a glass house, and it started to crack, and the whole thing just came shattering down overnight. And a lot of the investors that came through our doors after that were like, what makes you not the next WeWork? And I'm like, seriously? So the best thing we could do is go public and show everyone everything about us. And the nice thing about being public is you can't lie. You can't mess up the numbers. They have to be reported the same way every time. You have to disclose everything. It's very, very detailed. And that was the reason why we went public, is because we wanted everyone to know we were legitimate. We were not fake. We're not a fraud. Even though our competitors call us that every single day, literally. I don't care. You know what? Forget them. It's like, we're already worth more than most of them. So it's like, I don't really care what these haters say about us just because they don't understand us. Like, and it just is what it is.
Okay, but explain. I don't, I know Steve Gursky, but I don't even really know. VectorIQ was what, some sort of investment firm? And why would a truck manufacturer merge with a company like that?
Yeah, so it was all about going public. And I guess I didn't finish up on that subject, so I'm sorry. But it's all about going public. The idea is that if you go public, it takes about a year to do that. And it's very complicated. And the bankers control you. They literally control everything you do. So it's very complicated. And also you have a quiet period with going public where you can't even talk about something. But because we are being bought, and it's a reverse merger, it allowed me to communicate our message to the market. That, you guys understand this. You're experts, and I'm working through all these things with you guys, having fun, teaching about, like, at least my answers, whether or not you agree with them or not. But the idea is that I'm helping you understand it. This business model is complicated. It's also genius. you can't just let the analysts do this stuff because they won't understand it. And every short seller in the world is going to go out and try to short you because it's confusing. Now that we've started to explain it, people are starting to catch on. They're like, oh my gosh, Hyundai's now copying our business model in Europe. It's like, it's because once they see it, they're like, oh shit, yeah, we're going to die if we don't do this. And these guys make all this revenue. It's better margin. We want money. And so you see these people actually coming in and starting to duplicate what you do. And I mean, I think that's why we decided, you know what, everyone's going to know about it anyways. We need the capital. We need the money. Let's make sure people know we're not a glass house. And VectorIQ allowed us to go public within just about 5 months.
So Vector was already public. Is that right? And they were already on the NASDAQ.
Yes.
Okay, so that's how you were able to get on the NASDAQ, even though you haven't built or sold anything yet.
Yes, it's called a reverse merger. So kind of. It's called a special acquisition.
So how did that come together? You know, Steve Gursky's running this thing. Did he call you? You called him? How did the deal come together?
They had looked at hundreds of companies to take public, and they didn't find anyone they thought that had potential, because these things are very complicated. You either have to have a home run or you're going to die as a SPAC. And so a SPAC is a special acquisition company. They set aside usually $200 to $300 million in cash. These investors, they get warrants, so they get cheap stock plus they get warrants, and so they have a huge upside. You know, they can make 3, 4, 5 times the return if they find someone good to take public. And there's almost no risk on their side, you know, if it's a good company. So, but it's hard to find those good companies. They're like 1 in a million. You know, they're very, very hard to find, and we were just one of them. And Steve had reached out to us, and he just said, "Hey, look, I really want to talk to you guys." And their team came in and interviewed our company, and we sat down, we looked at everything, and they knew we were wanting to go public. We were planning on going public the normal way. And he said, "Look, there's ups and downs for what we're going to do, but here's all the pros, here's the cons. You guys decide if you think you want to do it." And ultimately, the pros were way outweighed the cons going the reverse merger. One, we could communicate to the public, which is awesome. You're not locked up. You can actually talk to people, communicate your message. You're guaranteed money in an IPO. You're not. You just hoping people are buying the shares because that money's already set aside. We had 500 million more come in interest from people that wanted our stock. So that's never really been done. We raised 700 million in the SPAC, and then there's about 230 million in warrants ish. I don't know the exact number. And here soon we'll be able to exercise those warrants, and those people that have them can make their margin and do well on them. And then we call them in, and they do well, and we get additional money. So we'll end up with over $1 billion in our account from this, and it was all pre-sold. So our risk was like almost zero. And normally in an IPO, you have a ton of risk, and we just didn't have that risk with us.
Yeah.
Trevor, if an executive in Dearborn or one in downtown Detroit or someone in Auburn Hills is watching this and they see the valuation of your company right now and they look at the valuations of their companies, what is it that you would say to them as to why you guys are doing so incredibly well and they're doing so?
I think that I would tell them 2 things. First of all, I'd compliment them, and then I'd tell them the truth. The compliment is that they paved the way for us to be here. So there's an enormous amount of gratitude for their tens of thousands of employees that got us here. I will never discredit the employees of these companies that got this world to where we are today, no matter who they are. Incredible people. Good job on every level. And then I would tell the executive team that ultimately you guys are going to die a slow death. And the only way you cannot die a slow death is to work with someone like us, because the world has shown you now that they want nothing to do with emissions. And this allows them to diversify away from emissions while still having their core competency making money until eventually they can get out of it completely. And if you don't do that, your stock's just going to eventually just keep going down until you have nothing left. And you'll hire 4 more CEOs to turn it around, and it'll just be a total disaster. And whatever you would have given up to work with us is zero compared to the billions you're going to lose by trying to do it yourself. Because most of them are very arrogant. They think they can do everything themselves. You can't. And we've already seen it. I don't care. You're nothing special. You're no better than any of the other guys. You are just what you are. And you got to realize what you're good at and what you're not good at. And that's what we preach. Be good at what you do and stick with it. So then they can work with people like us or Tesla or others that are zero emission, and they can end up really creating a whole new brand that is that's valuable.
Trevor, that sounds a little bit similar to something you tweeted the other day where you talked about the traditional OEMs not really understanding how customers want to feel connected to the brand, and especially in sort of a green future kind of way, they want to be, tied to making a difference, making a change. Can you expand upon that tweet? I'm guessing you remember which one it was.
Yeah.
But also, so how does that make you different as a, someone who's in charge or executive leadership versus some of the traditional CEOs or, chair people, whoever, that they're when they're running their legacy companies? Can you have it both ways, or is it just a difference between Nikola as more of a smaller company versus a company that's been around for 100 years?
I'm going to answer that in 1 second here. I'm just going to tell my.
I love it.
We should see what the other question was and see if that's actually his legal advisor over there.
Yeah.
I'm just messing. We believe him. Just trying to tell jokes to fill the time here.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. It's good.
You'll be in your car all week,
right?
Waitress.
Sorry, my wife was there's a delivery, and unfortunately that tractor has to be moved. So sorry guys. Yeah. So ask that. Okay, you're asking about that tweet. Okay, let me say this. All right, here's the deal. People, my generation and the generation after me, they're a different generation. Okay, they're not as normal as the generations before them. What that means is that they think differently. They think outside the box much differently than what the other generations is. And my generation was kind of right in the middle of all of it. So I understand theirs, and I understand the older generation, those before me. My generation and the generation after me, they want complete contact with everyone in the executive team. They want to drill you. They want to talk to you. They want to tell you about the problems. They want to know when things are good or bad. They want to ask you questions. And they despise people that are like holier than thou. The unfortunate part is every one of these CEOs in these big automotive groups don't give a flying crap about the people out there. They only care if you buy their vehicle. Now, they'll do a lot of things to try to make themselves look good, but they'll never spend hours on Twitter talking. They'll never be on the phone calls with people. They'll never go down to their employees and walk the entire floor and spend the entire time with their employees. I do that. And that's the thing that Nikola is different is there is no layers of communication between me and any employee at Nikola, nor me and any person on Twitter. When I answer something, 99% of the time it's going to be me. I'll only have someone else answer it if I can't get cell service or if something happens with my phone. I'm very accessible, probably one of the most accessible and direct CEOs in the world. And because of that, you can just go through and read. People love it. They just absolutely love it. And you can't get these older guys that are running big companies to ever become that. They'll fake it and people can sense it. They're just like, what? This guy's he's not even fun to talk to. They want to be entertained. For hell's sakes, they like excitement. They love the Kardashians. It's like they want excitement. They want to talk to you. They want to feel you. They want to know your emotion. I'm on Instagram telling people about my life, things that I'm doing throughout the day. They want to know everything about you. You know why? Because they're investing in you. They're investing in the future of transportation. They're not investing in necessarily like just some brand, like one of the Detroit guys. They want to invest in complete transformation and change.
But these people will not probably be driving Class 8 trucks. So
no, they don't. But they're the ones that they're the ones that actually touch all your other products and bring the value to your stock. So what they know is they're like, look, I know I'll never drive a truck, but you know what? You're cleaning up the second largest polluting market in the world. I'm going to fully support you, and I'll put my retirement into you because you know what? You're the only guy with enough guts to go do it, to shove it down the throats of all these other guys. I got laughed on stage by Daimler's president, told me I was a complete fraud, essentially, all bullshit. This will never work, never ever work, right in front of me and the entire crowd. And guess what? When I was done, the crowd didn't even say hi to the dude. They all came to me. They don't give a shit about these people that are just bashing on zero emission. They'll never get it. They'll never ever get it. And this happened at the ACT Expo just this last year. It's insane. Like literally just took shots at me in front of the crowd. Like, oh yeah, I don't need money. We're the best. We're the greatest battery. All they do is talk about how they're the best. They don't give a my generation doesn't give a crap about that. They want to know that no matter what, you're going to change the world for the good, and that you can communicate, you can talk, you can be relatable. And their CEOs will never be me. They'll never be, Elon. They'll never be anyone else. RJ. They'll never be any of them. They are who they are, and they'll never change. You cannot change it. You can't teach someone new tricks.
Hey, look, we're getting down towards the end of the show. We got a bunch of questions. Let me run through a number of them.
I got one or two of them, and I apologize because
then you got to run. Okay.
Yeah, I got to move this tractor. So I'm sorry.
Okay. Barry Rector wants to know: are you going to sell emission credits?
Yeah, we do get credits for them. So eventually, yes, we'll sell them, or we'll partner with someone that'll help us pay for factories, and we'll give them to them.
Matt Gamchuk wants to know: are you going to have your own dealer network?
No, we'll use someone else's network.
Chelsea Sexton again. You seeking any kind of public funding for your fueling stations? CARB, CEC, the Volkswagen money?
Yeah, any money that'll go towards hydrogen stations in those states that are willing to give those incentives, yeah, we would definitely love to have them, and we will use them when we can in certain places.
Dave Tuttle, do you have a total cost of ownership calculator, hydrogen versus BEV versus diesel, that you might recommend?
Yeah, they're in different markets. So the hydrogen versus diesel is more comparable. We're about 20% less than diesel, 15. Sometimes you're on parity in some areas, but you're anywhere from parity to 20% better. Battery electric is about 10% more efficient than that, but it can't do all the jobs that the hydrogen can do, and you lose payload. So battery's about 10% cheaper in the urban area.
Okay, last one. Katie, I don't know if you've got this picture, the Autocar Model U. This was sent in by Danny Youngblood. And he says he thinks this is the inspiration for the styling of your truck.
It was not, but that thing is beautiful, and I'd love to restore
Isn't
it.
it?
So if
It's
anyone
cool.
can track that thing down, I would love to restore that thing.
Yeah. Well, there you go. And we understand that you got to run. Trevor Milton, thanks so much for coming on, man. It's been awesome talking.
Appreciate it.
Blocking the road. I got to go fix this problem. Thanks so much, everyone.
Okay. See ya.
Okay, bye-bye.
Adios. Well, that's funny. This is the only show that we've ever had where the guest gets interrupted by, or the show gets interrupted because he's got to talk to his wife and then has to go move a tractor. I love it. So what do you think, Sebastian? These guys going to make it or what?
As with all, I've been writing about electric vehicles since 2006. With all these companies that have come over the years, I give them the benefit of the doubt to fail. I'm not going to sit here and tell them that they're wrong. I'm not going to sit here and tell them all the problems that I see. There are obvious problems. We talked about a lot of them. I would want to make one thing is where he sort of criticized other executives for always talking about how they're the best. And I think about 30% of what we just heard was him saying that he's the best. So, I think that's just sort of a way that leaders speak in some way, in some industries, or in some, there's some people just think that way. But the chicken and the egg model, he sort of talks about solving it in that they take the orders for the trucks and then they sort of assign them to a route, and then that's where they're going to put the stations. But if they're talking about selling the Badger truck with the fuel cell option at the end of next year, those stations are not going to be up yet. So that whatever benefit you get of having the hydrogen fuel cell option is, like Gary said, is limited to a few stations in California. So there's a lot of ways in which his presentation, when you think about it, if you can get it all to work, it's great. But when you think about it, there's got to be some steps that have to happen in between, and we'll see.
Yeah, we will. Gary, what do you think?
Well, I think what's a little concerning is, okay, when you're a Class 8 truck manufacturer, I mean, you've got decades of experience of what those trucks go through, how they have to perform, how they're abused, and on and on and on. And it's one thing to say that, okay, we're gonna build these trucks and they're going to be the best, and another thing entirely to, have fleets out there that are running to be racking up, tens and hundreds of thousands of miles to prove themselves out. And until that happens, I mean, I've got to be a little skeptical.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm skeptical only from the standpoint of it's hard to start a company. I mean, it's real hard, more fail than succeed. But the reason I thought this guy was legit to bring on the show was, again, what I said earlier on. Bosch is a big believer in it. They got Mike Mansuetti from Bosch on their board. They've got Steve Gursky on their board. They've got CNH, Iveco, that have invested. They've got this Korean Hanwha solar company that's invested. That tells me these companies, I should say, I know these companies have done their due diligence. And they're not the kind that get suckered in by some fly-by-night kind of offer. So that's why I'm more than willing to give Nikola the benefit of the doubt. They got to go out and execute. They got to prove that they can do it. But I'm convinced this guy's got a shot at pulling it off.
Well, I think it's absolutely real. I think it's of a viable company. But again, I mean, I get back to this thing of, okay, if you got Toyota working with Kenworth on hydrogen trucks, I think Toyota knows a little bit about lightweighting, and Kenworth knows a lot about long haul situations, and Toyota knows probably more than a little bit about hydrogen. And I mean, so this is, it's not an open playing field as I think he sort of implied it is.
Well, he's first. Look, the Toyota truck, we know that. We've seen the truck.
Right.
It's a prototype. It's not, the end all of it. They took fuel cells out of Mirais, stacked them up and put them on the back of a Kenworth bed, and voila, they had a fuel cell truck. That's how you start out, but I will give Nikola credit for having started from scratch with their idea. They're not going to do the Toyota one step at a time approach. They're just going in head first into the deep end.
Right.
Yeah, and I think you're totally right that it's legitimate to have him on. It's legitimate to talk to him, ask him questions. I remember writing a story for Trucks.com a few years ago when Nikola hired a guy from Ryder, and my editor at the time was like, I know this guy at Ryder. He's legit and he's jumping ship. We should cover this. So like there's signs, if you sort of know the industry, that like, yeah, there's more here than just bluster. So I totally agree with you that it's good to talk to him and good to sort of hear him out. But like you also said, skepticism is not the most unwarranted feeling to have.
Right. Look, I'm not saying they're going to succeed. Who knows if they're going to succeed? All I'm saying is I'm intrigued by the business plan.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued by his business partners. And that tells me he's at least got a shot of making the thing happen.
Plus, I think he's the only billionaire we've ever had on the show.
Yeah, what I read, $9 billion he's worth right now.
Not bad, huh?
Not
me.
bad if you can
Yeah, I
get
was
it.
gonna say. you'd be in a fancier car, Sebastian.
Yeah, you'd be on your own island is what you
Right,
would be.
right. I think I'd have high-speed internet at the house somehow if I had $1 billion.
You'd have your own satellite.
Right.
That's right. Well, hey, we ought to wrap it up. Sebastian, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Great to talk to you guys.
Now that we're doing more and more of this remote stuff, we got to get you on more often.
We'll be happy to.
Cool.
Great.
Okay. Gary, good seeing you.
All right,
we'll have
John,
to do it
take
again
care.
next week.
Okay.
Okay. So long, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.
Autoline After Hours is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires. Your journey, our passion.
Visit our website, Autoline.tv, where you can watch us live Thursday afternoons. Get your daily fix with Autoline Daily and in-depth analysis and interviews with Autoline This Week. There's all that and much more at Autoline.tv.